as a yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
You may take that in that. So to really see that part of the trachea that has the esophagus behind it, I'm going to have to cut up here a little bit higher. We're not worried about the heart right now, and worried about the great blood vessels. So if we cut them up a little bit, it's not going to make much of a difference. That dark thing I'm just cutting through there would be the thyroid gland, which is more of a 109 structure, right? The thyroid was one of your endocrine glands that's involved with maintaining your metabolism. Secreted thyroxins. Just pretend you remember this, everybody.
Yes.
Say, oh yeah, we remember all this. Good. So lift them apart a little bit. Here's my little blunt probe. This would be the larynx up here, obviously. Larynx, thyroid here. And then coming right below it, it would be the, underneath it here was the, there we go. You can start to see the trachea underneath it here. Let me pull up a little bit more of this here. Just scoot this away for now. There we go. You got branches of the vena cava come down here. You got jugulars. We're going to cut those all out of the way. They don't need their jugulars, do they? Everybody, nah. Don't need their jugulars anymore. Poor little piggy. So, since we're not doing the blood vessels, pull them away. The latex makes it real chewy.
Oh.
So don't be chewing on it. So now I can see the trachea better. Everybody see the... This is the trachea here. You can see that they have the same C-shaped rings of cartilage a little bit. That gives it a little bit of that ribbed appearance.
And that's the thyroid.
All right, that would be the thyroid gland there. Most of the thymus is over the heart here. Now, if I tease this away over on the side, it's easier if I pull it to the side this way. And I kind of pull the heart and the lungs this way so it sort of pulls the trachea over this way. All right, you will see the esophagus running right behind it. See it there? There's your esophagus. And it's connected to it with connective tissue, so it's not going to separate really easily. You kind of have to tease it away a little bit. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Good esophagus.
Oh,
Good
that's so cool.
esophagus. So that's how you actually, and the blunt probe is very good for doing this, because you can sort of insert it between it and kind of tease, and that would be the esophagus. Now, swallowing has a couple different stages. You can initiate swallowing, obviously, correct?
Yes.
There, I just did. But once it gets into your esophagus, all right, it's going to be taken by peristalsis down to your stomach. Remember we talked about peristalsis, right? Which is sort of this
Muscular contractions.
squeezing. So it's like threading a drawstring in your sweatpants, where the string comes out a little bit, and you kind of bunch it up and pinch it and bunch it and pinch it.
Okay.
Right, like sort of warm. So that's why there are going to be 2 layers of smooth muscle around the digestive tract. There's going to be, not like blood vessels that just had a single circular layer, or even the respiratory areas that just had a single circular controlled diameter. In order to propel things, you need 2 layers. A circular layer that kind of pinches things off, and a longitudinal layer that's going to bunch them up. And so under a histological examination, you'll see 2 layers of smooth muscle, circular and a longitudinal. You need that every place there's propulsion. So anytime you see that there's 2 layers of smooth muscle going in different directions, you know you're moving something. So you can drink water while you're standing on your head, because peristalsis will take that up to your stomach while you're standing on your head. I don't necessarily recommend that you do that, but it can be done. So here's the esophagus coming down here, all right, all the way through here, and it will pierce the diaphragm right before it enters into the stomach. So here's your stomach here, correct?
Yes.
You got some extra latex here, that's okay. We'll just pull that out, save that for those little bits for a little bit later. And you can't even hardly see the esophagus here because it will pierce the diaphragm right at the moment that it's joining it. And in fact, it's that little constrictor that actually helps to keep food from coming back up. Now there's also an esophagus at the very top of the stomach, between the stomach and the esophagus, that has 100 names. The lower esophageal sphincter is my favorite because it says everything you need. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the cardiac sphincter, not because it's near the heart, but because this region of the of the stomach, where it's coming in, is called the cardia. Because, for whatever reason. You'll see part of the stomach sort of sticks up above it, the fundus. That's kind of a gas collecting area. That's like that top part of the stomach. And you'll notice that most of the stomach has a kind of, the walls in the fetal pig here are going to be relatively thin. And if you sort of put it between your fingers, I'm going to pull the spleen out of the way. There's spleen. There's no ooh. It's just spleen. You'll notice that a lot of the stomach is relatively thin here. Until I get to the very distal end of the stomach, and you'll see how thick it gets, especially if you put it between your fingers. You'll see how thick that feels there. All right? That is the pylorus. The pylorus is the distal region of the stomach, and there's a sphincter inside of it called, coincidentally, the pyloric sphincter, that's going to regulate the emptying of the stomach into the small intestine. The stomach has its own pacemaker cells, sort of like the heart does, except instead of beating 100 times per minute, its rate is about 3 waves per minute that grind the food against the pylorus. So if you've had a meal, about every minute, maybe about a quarter of a teaspoon gets squirted through every time it grinds against it. And then that will then send the chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, that partially digested food, into the first section of your small intestine, which of course would be the duodenum, or duodenum, depending on what side of the tracks you're from. Now, the duodenum is often called the mixing bowl. It's only in humans, it's about 1 foot long, and it's mixing all the acid chyme that's coming down from the stomach with secretions from the liver that were stored in the gallbladder. Here's the gallbladder. It's intimate with that right lobe of the liver.
Okay.
That's where the bile that was made in the liver is going to be stored. That's the bile that will cause the
Digestion.
right of lipids. Right. What it will do will emulsify the lipids that the digestive enzymes can work on it. Right. Dump down there. You can also, if I lift the stomach up under it here, you'll see the pancreas. Hopefully you've seen the pancreas. Can everybody find your pancreas? There's your pancreas. Right above the large intestine, part of the large intestine. The intestines look green in this. Now, from there, this would be the duodenum here. It's going to be mixing all the digestive juices from the liver via the gallbladder and the pancreas. Massive amounts of alkaline fluid are released from the pancreas that will neutralize all that stomach acid. So even though while the chyme was in the stomach, it's really acidic, by the time it gets into the duodenum, it's actually alkaline because of all this massive amount of bicarbonate secreted also from the pancreas. The next section would be the jejunum. The last section of the small intestine would be the ileum. And the ileum in humans, more than 3/5 of it. Now, if you look at the board, you're going to sort of see some differences between the human and the pig digestive system. Our small intestine exits into your large intestine over on the right side.
I wonder if it's
for
done.
99% of the population. It's over here. And the small intestine enters into it, the large bowel. There's a little pouch called the cecum. And humans have this little appendix that hangs off of it, gets infected. You rip it out. And then we've got 3 major ones. We have an ascending, we have a transverse, and a descending, a little J-shaped sigmoid before you end up with the rectum, anus, and it's out. In pigs, it's going to be a little different because their digestive system is a little bit different. You're going to find their entry, instead of over on the left side, more on the right side. Now, their large intestine starts with this big mass that's all held together by connective tissue. It's called a spiral colon. We don't have a spiral colon, but it sort of takes the place of what their ascending colon would be. And you'll see this big mass that's kind of held together, and if you push that out of the side, you'll see where there's the last section of their small intestine. Their ileum goes into their cecum. Their cecum is going to be a little bit more elongated, a little blind pouch. But just like in us, there will be a valve between the ileum and the cecum, the ileocecal valve, that's going to control the emptying of the contents from the small intestine into the large intestine. By the time we've got a large intestine, virtually all the nutrients have been removed. All that's left is to compact the fecal matter, remove just the right amount of water, because you don't want too much water in the fecal matter, you don't want too little water in the fecal matter, do you? If there's too much water, you get electrolytes that go with that. That's diarrhea, and that kills a lot of people. It's one of the leading causes of death worldwide is diarrhea. A lot of diseases like cholera, diphtheria end up killing because of the dehydration, the electrolyte imbalance that comes along with massive amounts of diarrhea. So that's a bad thing. You don't want to take too much water out either, because then you end up, getting constipated or impacted, really worse. If you work with geriatrics, you'll worry about that. Then you got to get in there with, the coat hanger or the screwdriver, whatever instrument you're using there to try to loosen that up. I hate when that happens. All right, but anyways, for us, so in the pig at least that you're seeing here, you'll see the massive spiral colon. You'll see like a little bit that would be sort of like their transverse colon, right where they're, the pancreas would be right above that. You'll see a descending colon over here and a little bit of a sigmoid before it would get to the rectum. So in our little one that we're doing over here, you can see this is mostly small intestine here. The peritoneal membranes are thrown into these double folds called mesenteries that are really vascular, so that we can carry away all those products of digestion. All right, and you'll see this massive bundle there.
Is that the spiral colon?
Oh, you are so good. That is the spiral colon. And if I push this up out of the way a little bit over to the side, all right, with any luck, you'll see the small intestine. Come on, I can do this. I'm a professional. Here's the cecum here. See this little blind patch right here? It's held together with connective tissue to the ileum, so that's part of the mesentery there. But you can see it's this little blind patch. Can you see that, folks?
Yep.
All right. So this would be the ileum coming in here. There'd be a little valve there, which would be the ileocecal valve inside of that. They've got their spiral colon up through here. You see a little bit of like their transverse limb. Not much of one, is it? Little transverse. Then you'd see coming down descending.
Okay.
It'd be like the descending colon. And then little sigmoid section, rectum under here, and boom, anus out there. All right. So, and scene.
Yay!